Hey guys, happy Thursday. I hope you had a great day, getting ready for the new year, etc. Let's get into it with another video. Today, I'd like to talk to you about meetings. I know meetings are extra boring. There's not something we want to talk about. But without meetings, there's drama, frankly. Things fall through the cracks. People are not working on what they should be working on. Important projects are not getting done. People are not as effective as they could be. And just a business really can't run without meetings. And over time, we've had daily huddles and weekly meetings, and we've had this meeting rhythm that I'm going to share with you today since the very beginning when we first started the company back at the end of 2013. And we got the original meeting rhythm agenda, and we learned this whole thing about meeting rhythms from the Rockefeller Habits, which then became the book Scaling Up by Verne Harnish. And we ran our agency up until we found the great game of business with Scaling Up. And most of the meeting rhythm and a lot of what we do today is still based on Scaling Up methodology, but now with great game of business layered on top of it. So, and since 2013, end of 2013, these meetings have evolved. They weren't perfect to begin with, and they're probably still not perfect now. But it's important to just get started with the meeting, and then over time, yours will evolve too, I think. But ours just evolved as needed. As the team got bigger, then smaller, we had to change up the meeting. Sometimes we had multiple meetings because there was too many people in meetings. So, but it's just important, I think, what was most important for us is just to do the meetings, even though they weren't very good at the beginning. Just like these videos, doing the videos, and then over time they evolve and you get better and better. But I just can't overemphasize the importance of meetings and meeting rhythm to our organization. I know that Patrick Lencioni also has a book called Death by Meeting, which is a great book about meetings, and he talks about the importance of them as well. So that's the importance of meetings. Now let's go into our meeting rhythm at the agency. So we have a daily huddle at our agency every single day. Every single person in the organization is on at least a daily huddle. It's at the same time every day. It goes for between 15 and 20 minutes every single day. And another important part about these meetings is that since we're remote, all of our people are remote. They always have been, even pre-pandemic. I don't know where we'd be without them. And I think that our meetings go a little long because they're the only time that we really communicate with one another. So we've chosen to expand them and to let people kind of go on about what they're working on or about a problem that they're having to a certain point, and then we'll take it offline. But the basic overview is one daily huddle and one weekly call. That's the basic overview. Other people, especially people that follow Scaling Up, have a quarterly planning session and an annual planning session. Our annual meeting, we don't have an annual planning session or annual meeting because we just use the last all of the weekly meetings of quarter four take the place of our annual planning session. Every week during the last quarter of each year, we spend those calls, or the last half of each call, working through our annual plan for the following year. And when I say annual plan, there's 5 specific things here that we do for annual planning. The very first one is to ask people to fill out a survey. So that's kind of getting ready for the annual plan. We fill out a survey. Then we determine, with those answers, we discuss and we determine our critical number, the one thing that we should accomplish in the next 6 to 12 months that will have the biggest impact on the company. And typically, it fixes a lot of other things. It helps and fixes a lot of other things. So we determine our critical number. Then number 3 is we identify drivers. For us, the drivers are individual drivers. We just ask each person how they can impact the critical number, what daily activities can they participate in or do to impact the critical number the most. And then after that, we plan out our mini games for the following year. At the same time, we're working on our annual plan. That's being sent around, circulated. Our annual plan for the following year consists of each line item in the P&L and our financial scoreboard. So there are some balance sheet items on there, like short-term debt, cash. And so each of those line items on our scoreboard has a monthly or 12 months of forecasts of what they will look like. And we have each line item owner go through their forecast and put down what they think it will look like, starting with revenue and then going down, because revenue affects everything else. If we plan on bringing in 20% more revenue, for example, then the content team will have to produce more content, and revenue impacts the other line items down below. And then the final thing, once the annual plan is finalized, we don't change the annual plan once it's finalized. So for the following year, if we have an annual plan, we do not change it, because that's like changing the goalposts in a game. We just don't do it. Once it's set, it's set. And then after that, and finally, what we work on during these annual meetings is we reveal our bonus plan. It's based on the annual plan, and people can earn up to 20% on top of their base salary, depending on levels of profitability that we hit for each quarter. So just a couple of notes about our calls. There's one person running the call. I typically, as the owner, I'm on each call because I'm working in the company. If I wasn't working in the company, I don't think I would be on the calls, but I would make sure that these calls were running properly before I stepped away. That's for sure. So I go on and do the intro and just what we're working on that day, that week. I repeat usually the same thing for a while until it's sinks in people's brains and they can repeat it verbatim as to the goal, the critical number, whatever big priority that we're working on. And then our client experience manager, who deals with all our clients, he leads the call. And that wasn't always the case. We changed it to having him lead the call because that way he can relay what clients are saying, and he can also check in on certain tasks and projects. Everyone on video, preferably. We don't get this one right. There are certain people that are not on video, but everyone on video. I like to promote discussion. So if I'm the only one doing the talking, there's a big problem. I just don't like that. I like having everyone involved in these meetings. So with the Great Game of Business, that helps because you have line item owners giving their forecast, and the owner or the person running the call is really just like an MC. But I want to get as many people involved as possible. And I also want to promote conflict, healthy conflict and discussion. So if somebody doesn't agree with something, I usually probe to ask them why, and I want to know more about what they're thinking. I already said this one, but every person is in a huddle every single day. And these calls, I try to eliminate these got a minute calls throughout the day by getting everything out during the call. So if I'm seeing a lot, like in our Slack channel or in our Slack, a lot of requests for, hey, do you have a minute? I then try to figure out why that thing wasn't brought up during the meeting or during the huddle. We definitely have emergencies or things come up throughout the day that have to be shared and done. That's understandable. But we want to do our best to eliminate these got a minute meetings or these last minute call requests, so that people, once they're done with the huddle, they know what they should be focused on, and they can hit the ground running for that day and work uninterrupted as much as possible. All right, so our agenda for each of these meetings, basically the 2 meetings that we run all the time, are the daily huddle. It's pretty simple. I like to start off with small talk, and I try to keep it positive. I try to ask people, if there's any good news to share. I don't like to turn it into a complaining fest, so I try to skew it positive. I understand other things come up, but I do ask for good news, not just, not just what's going on. And then there's just 2 basic questions that we get into. Before we get into that, I now, a new thing is that we go through our client tasks and to-dos and just go through them to update the status of these things that we've been working on. Client projects, client tasks, just go down a task list. It takes a couple minutes. And then once we get into it, the heart of the meeting is just basically 2 questions. What are your 1 to 3 top priorities for the day? If it gets more than that, then, that's just, you're working on too much. And then what are you stuck on anything, or what are your obstacles? And that usually promotes cross-departmental talk and gets people communicating with others and asking other people for things that they might need help with. So that's the daily huddle. It's very to the point. And then our weekly team call is every Thursday at the same time every day. It's the same time as the daily huddle, but it's longer. It goes 1 hour. We usually keep it to an hour exactly. I like to cut it short at an hour if we're going over, but sometimes we do go a couple minutes over. Start on time, end on time. It's a big one. It's one that we're still working on. People show up late, which is fine, but I like to not wait for them and just get into it as soon as we're ready and not wait for anyone. We will, ping someone or send them a direct message on Slack and tell them that we're on. But starting on time and ending on time is critical. Those are our daily huddles. The weekly team call. Where was I? Excuse me. The weekly team call is 1 hour, like I said, but the agenda is a little bit different. So we start off with wins, 1 personal and 1 professional. So we go around the room and we usually put a list of people, the order of the people on the screen, so that we don't have to wait for people to jump in and say, hey, I'll go or whatever, because it takes too long. We want to keep it to less than a minute per person and just rapid fire around the room. Wins, 1 personal, 1 professional. And don't let people off the hook. Let them think about their wins and come up with a win, 1 personal, 1 professional, even if it was like what they ate yesterday or whatever, if they can't think of anything. So then once we have the wins, we go into our forward forecasting, which is a great game of business concept, where we update our financial scoreboard, and each line item gives their forecast for what their line item on the scoreboard will look like for that month. So we do this 4 or sometimes 5 times a month. So as the month goes on, at first, there's not as much data, so there's a lot of assumptions. Like if it's at the beginning of the month, you're forecasting for the month, there's not as much data. But as you go along, the month is, getting shorter and shorter, meaning there's almost ending, and you have more and more data coming in, like actually like money spent in your line item. You should have a better idea as to what your line item is going to look like at the end of the month. And then for the last half, we talk about some issue or something relevant to that time. So for quarter 4, we do our annual planning. But for the first 3 quarters, it'll be an issue that we want to clean up or work on. And if sometimes it's shorter than a half an hour, sometimes it doesn't go to the end of the meeting, which is fine. But I'll ask if we don't have anything to talk about or queued up to talk about that day. We'll just go around and ask, like, what is the biggest issue that we're dealing with right now, and we'll talk about that issue. We'll discuss it. So those are our meetings. Why meetings are important. That's our meeting rhythm, from the daily huddle to the weekly call, and then our weekly call turns into the annual planning session in quarter four. I hope you got something out of it, because it truly is important to get this down and to do weekly meetings and to do daily meetings, to have each person in some kind of meeting each day. It really does eliminate drama. So let me know about your best practices for meetings. Leave a comment if you have any questions. And always remember, people support what they help create. And once again, thank you for watching.